Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Thomas. Tonight we're back here with Josh Scorcher with the top 10 penultimate bosses. So yeah, these are basically the bosses you face before you hand off to the final boss. Basically, they're the dragons, aka the henchmen of the big bad. You know, right-hand man and all that. I'm not sure how many literal dragons we'll get, but it tells me Ridley might be here. I mean, come on, the dude's been penultimate boss more than final boss a lot of times. Anywho, so be sure to like, subscribe for more. Hope you enjoy. Let's see these penultimate bosses. Here we go. Here we go.
You know, this was originally a celebration for the almost end of another year, but schedule shifting is a
21.
curse, so we'll settle with the aftermath instead.
Why not?
Anyways, penultimate bosses. The last big obstacle before the big bad final challenge.
See?
And sometimes they're the final boss's second in command, or their harbinger. More so if the endgame is some kind of eldritch entity. If they're the second in command, they usually have some kind of personal stake with our main protagonist in some way.
i.e. the
Other
dragon.
times, the semi-final boss is the
You
one
go
you
strange?
thought was the real boss, but psych!
Nope.
It was actually this
Someone
guy.
else.
Or maybe it was
Him?
this guy?
Clayface?
I don't
Joker?
know. Sometimes they're not really connected at all. One major factor I want to include is how closely do the semi-finalists match or exceed the quality of the final boss. Because if they exceed it, that's actually going to be a point against them. Because their goal is to serve the story and the final boss, not overshadow it. Though, trust me, I will be doing a future video about bosses that overshadow the final bosses. Because in those
the
cases,
overshadow
Fate
bosses.
from Arkham Origins,
Hi.
they probably should have been the main baddie. Even more than the actual baddie.
Makes sense. Alright, first up. Taking the first shot.
As a series known for setting up grand epic finales, Kirby has a lot of great endgame bosses that help
who's
build
first?
the atmosphere before reaching your last challenge. Heart of Nova, Dark DeRoche, Dark Matter, Landia, Highness, the list goes on. If I gotta pick one for the countdown, I'm leaning towards Kirby 64's Miracle Matter. Oh, and hey, look at that. Kirby did a biblically accurate angel before it was cool. Miracle Matter is the force responsible
Also,
for
were they
holding
really
Ripple
that
Star in hostage
I don't
of the
know.
Dark Matter. Of course, it would have been the final boss if you didn't meet the requirements necessary to fight Zero Two. In terms of story, Miracle Matter isn't much of a plot-driven character, but it made up for it with a pretty creative boss fight. Each form it takes to attack
Yeah.
it carries a particular element that reflects your copy abilities. Fire, ice, needle, spark, bomb, cutter, and rock. These forms can only be damaged with their own elements, otherwise your attacks do nothing. You could fight Miracle Matter one of two ways. Either copy his ability and attack him within the form that enables you to do so, or simply shoot his projectiles back at him. The latter is definitely more efficient and preferable, but anyone with a good enough speedrun skills can probably make use of the copy abilities in this fight. While there are
yeah,
really
because you
grander
can
penultimate bosses in
double
the
up,
series, those tend to
if I
be
remember
rather
correctly, right?
straightforward beatdowns. This one sticks out by being a puzzle fight that keeps you on your toes and one of the few in the series that encourages you to fight without abilities. After all, if you can't master the puffball at his weakest, you don't deserve him at his strongest.
Harsh, but kind of accurate in a way. Number 9.
All right, it's time to talk about Fawful. I said it's time to
Logan?
talk about Fawful.
Logan! Where is
Fawful,
he?
get in there!
Dude, I'm not gonna automatically cameo in everything that has Fawful in it. I'm into other stuff, you know.
Sure.
So, where were you during all the TF2 segments then?
Point taken.
Anyways, Fawful is the breakout villain of Superstar Saga. Every
Yeah,
time
it's,
he's on
Cracklecker.
screen, Fawful is a
barely showed
constant
up.
barrel of laughs thanks to his gloriously ham-tastic personality and broken English. Even when he creates roadblocks for
I
the
have
bros,
to-
it's hard to
yay!
be mad at him because he's just so fun. Such a memorable villain deserves an equally memorable boss fight, and Fawful certainly delivers. The main
Twice,
gimmick
I
of the
think,
fight
too.
involves waiting for Fawful's
you
gun to
shut
overheat
this!
itself and then attack him. Given that this is a Mario and Luigi game, you're more than capable of dodging all of his attacks. That means you don't have to deal with RNG. Unfortunately, I can't really rank Fawful any higher due to the simplicity of the battle. It pretty much just boils down to dodging and spamming bros attacks. Still, Fawful is a great villain, and this was a good battle against him. So while Mario and Luigi games are no longer being made, Fawful will continue
Rest in
to
peace, Alpha
supply
Dream.
much chortles.
My scripts are in need of repairs.
Yeah, you might want to. Double check your spelling there, too. I'm right.
Oh, Metal Gear Rising.
Jetstream
Platinum
Sam?
Games' hack and slashiness combined with the insane
on.
mind of Hideo Kojima. Thank
not?
goodness Suda51 stayed away, or else this game would literally be mind-melting. Well, I talked a few times about everyone's favorite over-the-top senator,
Armstrong?
but for once, I would like to talk about another one of the game's antagonists. At least, the one people care about the most other than Armstrong. Jetstream Sam.
Yep.
Well, the game is called Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, so you have to get revengeance on someone.
AKA?
In the game's first
Yep.
level, after you beat up a Metal Gear Ray, you catch up to Sam on a train to save an African prime minister. Unfortunately, it
too
doesn't
late.
turn out well for you. Well, mostly him, but also you. Sam's accomplice kills the minister and cuts off your arm, which makes you think.
So this is how I died. Down an arm and killed by an android.
Okay, they're technically cyborgs, but wow, that's fitting. Anyways, Raiden lives and spends the rest of the game working on his revengeance. He takes
Mostly
on
just,
Sam's group
you know-
and kills each of their members one by one until you get to the big man
There you
himself.
go.
The fight with Sam will test your parrying and backstep abilities to its fullest. It's like fighting a doppelganger of yours. Sam will attack
In a way,
you
they're
with
kinda
quick
like
katana
mirrors of each
strikes and
other, you
kicks
know?
as you parry him the best you can. After a bit, he will slash at you and with a quick time counter, but you can activate blade mode and disarm him. During the second phase, he will kick up rocks at you, rely more on punches and kicks, and dash at you like he's Sonic on speed. Eventually, he will catch your blade and force you into another quick time event in blade mode before grabbing his blade once again. Here it's the same as the first phase with some extra kicks, dashes, and guitar riffs thrown in to hype up the rest of the fight. The Sam fight was built up throughout the game, with Sam being your quote-unquote rival, showing up in places and talking crap before disappearing into the plot closet until
Pretty
he's
much.
needed again. So this fight was fun and cathartic, fighting someone with a similar moveset to Raiden. At least where the blade work is seen. While you can make an argument that Metal Gear Excelsius was the penultimate fight, it can also be seen as the first phase against Armstrong, as
mean,
he's the
to be
one
fair,
piloting
yeah.
it. In this case, though, the only thing I know for real is this fight is awesome.
I mean, to be fair, Sam really knows how to make sure you work for that win. Which, honestly, fair enough. I guess he knew about Armstrong's, madness, and he figured, well, if I can't take him down, might as well train someone else to do it. Thus, Raiden. Yeah, I think I actually implied in the DLC that Sam was kind of an unwilling pawn. Like, he got bested by Armstrong because of the nanomachines, son. And, well, you know the rest. Sam instigates Raiden to take revenge, he takes him out, and, well, Raiden becomes the hero. Anyway, moving along. Or at least that's how I remember it. Let's see, number 7.
After you beat Gygus in Earthbound, you're treated to one of the greatest epilogue sequences in gaming. There are no more enemies to get in your way. You're free to give the world one last exploration before you return home and bring your journey to a close. The story is
Finally
over.
Or is it?
Picky wakes up Ness in the middle of the night and gives him a letter from his brother, Porky. Porky, having escaped to an unknown point in time, challenges Ness to find him, and that's it.
Okay, go on.
Fast forward to Mother 3, we find several references to pigs, pig-masked soldiers, the fierce pork trooper, and the bedroom of King P. Ew. This
Porky.
all comes to a head when Porky himself is revealed to have been the one behind everything. And the fight against Porky is great, full of awesome music, plenty of attacks, and even a clever callback to Gygus. But what really puts him on this list is the conclusion. Porky realizes that he's losing, and rather than accept defeat,
I'll never
he
die.
forces the battle to a stalemate. He seals himself in the absolutely safe capsule. As the name implies, it's indestructible. Unfortunately, you can also never exit it. You don't get any big fanfare for beating him, just a blunt message. Because Porky is in the absolutely safe capsule, the battle is, by definition, over. Porky refused to let you beat him, even if it meant being alone for the rest of time. And he's happy about this, mocking you about this. While you were able to put a stop to Porky, you never got the satisfaction of killing him. But because you still got a good
probably
boss
would have just
fight,
dropped him off the
it doesn't
cliff.
feel like a
or something,
letdown.
You know?
In other words, Mother 3 is an example of an anticlimax done correctly. As opposed to...
That. Fair enough. Honestly, if I was there, I probably would have tossed Porky out the cliff. I mean, hey, that was safe. I mean,
Alright,
Not
let's
the
see which
capsule.
boss I can recycle today. Nope.
Oh, Axel?
Nope.
Or Axel? Flowey?
Ooh, definitely not.
okay, missed that one. Huh?
Imagine, if you will, a bizarre combination of Tim Curry, Gene Simmons from Kiss, and Edward from Twilight. Now make him a demon lord and a harbinger of an even worse demonic entity. Throw in Lady Gaga's fashion consultant, and you've got Lord Girahim from Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. A cocky, flamboyant little theater child whose end goal is to use Zelda's spirit to revive his master.
Demise.
Appropriately named Demon King Demise. As for Girahim himself, you actually fight him 3 times. But naturally, we'll be looking at his 3rd and final fight, the penultimate battle before the
Against
big
the Demon
endgame
Lord,
brawl.
Girahim.
Like I mentioned in my smartest bosses countdown, Girahim isn't exactly your traditional boss fight. He doesn't test your usage of a dungeon item, he tests your skills with the game's swordplay, forcing you to react to his own attacks, occasionally stealing your own sword, and then drawing his own blade to strike you down unless you can avoid his blows and hit him where he's open. All the while, he carries the smug bravado at how weak and obvious you are. Kinda ironic with that last part, since once you learn his style, he himself becomes a bit obvious. Don't get me wrong, he's still a tough customer, but his fighting pattern in this fight is kind of the same as the other two, except here he's literally a little darker. Yeah, fighting Girahim is a no-brainer once you've learned how he works, but there's a reason he's this high on the list. Even after you've beaten him, even after you've damaged his pride and struck down his ego, he's still won. He succeeded with what he set out to do. The ritual was a success, and Demise is revived and ready to plunge the world into darkness. All the while, Girahim laughs and happily fights by his master's side as his sword, reveling in the fact that while Link won the fight, he got the last laugh and set the scene for the finale. Mad props to a semifinal baddie who knows what he wants and sticks to his guns.
Pretty much. But still lost in the end, so... In a way, actually started the whole cycle of reincarnation.
Remember how I mentioned that the penultimate boss isn't supposed to overshadow the final boss?
Yeah?
Well, there's exceptions to every rule.
What do you got?
No more Heroes 2.
Huh?
That's really all I need to say to a lot of my longtime fans and to longtime fans of this countdown community. After all, the final boss of the game is considered to be one of the worst final bosses thematically that we fought. But in a way, that makes the penultimate boss, Alice Twilight, more iconic in comparison. Alice is number 2 of the Assassin's ranking. The previous bosses and stages up to her have been profound and mesmerizing, between the catchy and theme of Margaret's fight to the otherworldly spectacle that was Vladimir's. Even her own stage, a romp through a sunset-soaked city with calming but excitable music, is impactful. It's like going through Twilight Town, but with more blood. This leads to Alice herself, a somber but determined assassin who acts as a different type of foil to Travis. Travis, at this point in the game, is starting to doubt the whole assassin's ranking system and finds it pretty BS. Alice is someone who came to the same conclusion, getting tired of all the pointless blood and killing for the sake of revenge and sport. She and all of the assassins want to fight Travis, the one man who was able to conquer the rankings and leave without any consequences. Two people with similar ideals forced to fight due to the competition that binds them under a sunset that will turn into a new night. And so it begins, a duel between swords, or lightsabers, that surpasses even the duels against Sam and Girahim. Alice and her lightsaber menorah, trademarking, that pushes you and Travis to your limits with fast combos and projectiles that can differ depending if she's in the air or on the ground. Her attacks are capable of breaking through your guard, so you will need to differ between dodging and blocking to overwhelm her before she overwhelms you. It's
Pretty
similar
much.
to the Jetstream Sam fight in Metal Gear, as you're fighting someone with a similar skill set to you, just more impactful in some ways. Of course, we should talk about the Jasper Bat Jr. size hole in the window. Yes, Alice really overshadows Jasper. However, Jasper on his own is an annoying but overall more pointless fight. Sure, in terms of Travis's development, he throws it out the side of a 40-story building only for it to become a giant parade float that Travis then needs to kill. But the Alice fight is so good that it can work even with Jasper being there. His fight is still a difficult fight with some tension and buildup that was seen throughout the game, and Alice being there does build up his fight. It just ended with a whimper. Plus, it's the reason Alice is only number 5. Alice is a fantastic
sorry, Alice,
sword
but
duel between two like-minded
the Sword Shadow
assassins
bosses,
that
yeah,
ended
probably be
tragically.
higher.
And to this day, hasn't been surpassed by any of Suda's work. Even if the JRPG battle in No More Heroes 3 comes close.
Yeah, fair. Pretty strong. Number 4?
There are two ways a
Sly
good
Cooper.
penultimate
Hey.
boss can set you up against the finale. Either A, convey a narrative that portrays how important that boss is to the story, or B, make them very challenging in the most creative ways imaginable as an appetizer for the final boss. We covered Miracle Matter before, but it definitely falls into this category. But by far, one of the best
King
examples
Dice.
of this practice is Inkwell Hell's casino owner, King Dice.
Dice.
As the
I
devil's
can
right-hand man,
I
King
can
Dice
attest.
manages
Heavily
your
tricks it
progress
out.
through each part of the island to see if you've collected all the soul contracts necessary. Once you collect all of them, he takes it upon himself to challenge you. Oh, but he doesn't engage you immediately. Instead,
Oh,
he
you got
prepares
mini
a
bosses.
gauntlet for you to pass with the dice block that determines where you go. Each of the bosses you fight are short, but very chaotic. It's also really imaginative how they use all these different casino
Yeah,
properties
different gambling.
and turn them
Alcohol,
into boss
cigarettes,
fights.
horse
you have
racing,
a choice to pick which
billiards.
boss you fight before you reach dice. And it's certainly preferable to fight
As
as
most players
few of them
usually
as
do,
possible,
aim for the
since
hearts
creative
and
as
safe
they can
spaces,
be,
you'll be on
they
your
can
way.
do some real damage to you as the gauntlet goes on. After you get through the gauntlet, King Dice immediately sends a barrage of walking cards at you, and you have to parry the occasional heart card. It's simple and straightforward, but it really puts you on edge and tests your skill to stay airborne on the spot. Though I do recall that you can hide behind his hand in other pre-patched versions of the game, but then again, those versions also have RNG Cala Maria and the Devil's Second Form cheese, so let's not talk about that. That aside,
Probably for the
King
best,
Dice is
yeah.
still a really well-designed boss with a unique difficulty curve as far as Cuphead bosses go. It's interesting how you can choose your fights throughout the gauntlet and go with what suits you best before you reach the master of the house. But knowing Cuphead, you do have to stomach the archaic difficulty that comes with these kinds of bosses. But hey, at least we got a pretty satisfying victory out of it.
Seriously, how does he bend his fingers like that? Like,
I think it's just magic. I don't know.
oh, almost flipped you off there.
Yeah, fair enough. Also, I think with me, the King Dice fight was always like tricky. Like, once you figure out like the patterns of like, say, how each of the bosses play out, you get through it no problem. But when it comes down to King Dice, you're basically kind of switching it up again. Like, yeah, it's like multiple different ways of fighting. So you're kind of figuring out, okay, how do I fight this way? How do I fight that way? And also, you kind of like don't really parry a lot. So, or at least if you don't parry that well, you could get hurt on King Dice a lot. I think that's where it happens most of the time. Like, you don't really do damage to dice until you get to the finale. The final part of the fight. That's what I always had trouble with dice. Like, I can get there, stumble across the way, but when it comes down to the parrying, I always had trouble with that. Because, you accidentally hit the wrong button, or at least, do it hard enough, it doesn't register, and you take a hit. I'm not complaining, but it's what I noticed. Anyway, time to the final 3. Let's see these last 3 penultimate bosses. First up,
There are few things
Oh,
more
yeah.
terrifying to meet on a battlefield than someone who fights for a cause they believe in with all their heart, mind, and soul. They fight for an ideal and uphold the truth of their conviction. They will do anything for their self-appointed mission of righteousness. N of Pokemon Black and White fame doesn't quite reach that level of fanaticism, but he's not too far off either. Raised almost from birth to be
Thanks
the
a lot,
king
Getsus.
of Team Plasma and indoctrinated by Getsus, N believed wholeheartedly the false narrative about freeing Pokemon from their supposedly tyrannical trainers. This culminates in Team Plasma raising an entire freaking castle from
Around the
Earth
league
itself
championship.
to overshadow Unova's Pokemon League. There's an
That-
unmistakable feeling of dread as you climb the stairs to enter this palace. A feeling that only grows as you make your way up to the top of the castle, where you are confronted by N and a legendary dragon, either Reshiram or Zekrom, depending on your
the
version.
game.
As great as the build up to this fight is, both narratively and atmospherically, the fight itself is somewhat lackluster.
Again, it's
4 out of
Pokemon,
6
hard
of
to
his
move out.
Pokemon have a crippling weakness to fighting types, in a generation legendary for its introduction of excellent fighting types. It's also not much harder than any of the Elite Four fights, given their Pokemon
Yeah,
are
especially if
level
you know what you're
48,
doing.
And N's team are level 50, with his legendary dragon being level 52. But no matter anything else, N's theme is a stellar piece of music, and so, for the Puppet King of Team Plasma, we award N the 3rd spot on this list.
Pretty much. I also kind of feel bad for him. He just got manipulated by a tyrannical man.
We've talked about
Next.
Hollow Knight a couple times on this
Hello.
channel, but we never really touched upon the core story
Yeah,
in
the Hollow
detail
Knight
now, did
itself.
we? Well, this is as good a time as any to change that,
Why not?
so let's dive into Hollow Knight's tragic tale. Be warned, you're gonna be here a while. A long time ago,
Go.
Hollow Nest was under the rule of the benevolent Pale King, whose influence has attracted even the Moth tribe to worship him over their goddess, the Radiance. Angered, Radiance unleashed an infection that would kill all of Hollow Nest unless the Pale King finds a vessel to seal her and the infection away. To do
But
so,
didn't
he
work.
bred hundreds and thousands of
White
children
Lady.
with his spouse, the White Lady. Each of them were tested to become the vessel, but out of all of them, only one stood still. The chosen child was then sent to seal the infection for good, but not for long. Years later, the Radiance took control again and unsealed the infection through the fading vessel. Unbeknownst to many, one of the discarded vessels, the protagonistic Knight, found their way outside of the abyss and set out to end the infection once and for all. To do so, they have to get past the vessel himself, aptly dubbed
The Hollow Knight. Yeah, we're not playing as the titular Knight. We're
At first,
facing
the
him.
Hollow Knight seemed like a formidable opponent. He's 5 times your size, incredibly agile, and bears the magic from the infection within him. But then you see how powerless he really is. Instead of fighting you at his best, he's being pulled around by the infection as if he's a puppet. Heck, he stabs himself multiple times in the middle of the fight. Even at his worst state, he's still trying to fight back against the infection. This is one of those fights that gets gradually easier as it goes on, but with all the lore that's been building up to it, it really makes sense that it turned out this way. You're trying to set your brother free from the fate that led him to suffer for so long. All the while, the outcome boils down to either you taking his place as the seal, or once you discover the Void Heart, enter his dreams to destroy the Radiance and fulfill the Hollow Knight's destiny on his behest. Now, some of you might be disappointed to see that the Hollow Knight is built up so much only to die this easily. But don't worry, Godmaster gave us a redux of this fight in the form of Pure Vessel. If you want to see what the Hollow Knight can really do, then rest assured,
There you go.
that fight will make you wish you turned your tail while you could. The amount of stories surrounding this boss and how it all comes together in the incredibly dramatic battle makes this an absolutely perfect penultimate boss. So with that in mind, why isn't this boss at number 1? Well, as well designed
get
as
to that.
this fight may be, for me, the next one just left a stronger impact.
Shall we?
What could possibly be on this level of spectacle, you may ask? Well, hang tight, we'll find out soon enough.
But first, honorable mentions. Gotta include them.
Black Knight, Fire Emblem, Path of Radiance. Either face your nemesis head on or run for your life. Do you have what it takes? 13 Fragments, Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind. Gray DLC, but still all that fan service. Yasha, Asura's Wrath.
Yasha?
Same reason, but man, is that the pinnacle of a bros duel. Argus, Shadow of the Colossus.
Oof,
The second
big one.
hairiest Colossus that embodies traits of all past foes. Good luck not getting stepped on. Meta Ridley, Metroid Prime.
There's Ridley.
A climactic warm-up session with your longtime arch enemy in cyborg form. There's a lot of those.
You ain't wrong. Especially depending where you play at. And the number 1 penultimate boss is...
Something we've really tried to keep in mind when making this countdown was whether
Asgore?
the penultimate boss complemented or overshadowed the final boss. A fight that overshadows the final boss was docked points. So that being said, the Asgore fight from Undertale walks such a fine line between complementing and overshadowing the final boss that it speaks volumes to how incredible this fight is that even that didn't knock it off of number 1. From
Yeah, no
almost the
kidding.
very beginning of the
Like, you
game,
hear
you
of him.
are warned about Asgore. Some speak of a mad king, lost in grief, who will do
Sorry.
anything to avenge his son. Others tell you of a good man, forced to make a terrible choice. Either way, as Toriel warns you, the moment you leave the ruins, the two of
You're on
you
a
are
roll.
destined to clash. And what a clash it is. When you finally reach the Old King, you find him
Just
tending
guarding.
to a garden of yellow flowers that he's allowed to consume what looks to be the throne room. Why
the
such
old
an
throne.
obsession with these flowers, I wonder? Whatever the reason, you approach Asgore, and at first, he seems like a kind, sincere
him like a
person,
cup of tea.
being very polite and letting you take your time before your final confrontation with him. But as the battle begins, Asgore quickly reminds you that it was he who slew the other 6 humans, and there will be no mercy in
sparing.
this fight. Bergentrucken then blasts into full power, carrying certain hints of another leitmotif. As the battle gets underway, you notice a few things about the king, and more specifically, about his attacks. Only one other monster had attacks similar to his. Even more
Toriel.
telling is if you save the slice of butterscotch pie Toriel gave you and eat it in front of him, his reaction
That's
is
something.
quite telling.
Yeah, look.
You dodge, do your best, and survive, and when all is said and done, the human child stands victorious over Asgore. He kneels, defeated, and speaks of his regrets, of rallying the monsters to a war against the humans just for the sake of giving them hope. But a hope like that is doomed to shatter. Asgore begs you to end him and his false promises, and uses power to go home and live in peace. You can choose to do as the king asks. You can choose to slay him as he slayed 6 other human children. Or, using the shoddily repaired mercy button, you can spare him. Maybe if you can spare even Asgore, you can show mercy to the one who needs it most.
I'm Josh Scorcher, and whew, glad these battles weren't too long, otherwise they might not have been as interesting.
Speaking of which, August bots.
Or are they?
I'm guessing the either audio cut out or I guess got copyright stricken. Whoopsie. Anyway, so there you go. The penultimate bosses with Asgore taking the top spot. Which, considering the story arc of this game, not surprised. Anyway, so that's about it. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you guys think of the best penultimate boss you fought, and I'll see you around. Adios.